Survivor's Guide to True Crime includes discussions of sexually based violence and is not intended for children. Information provided should not be used as a substitute for professional medical or legal advice. Please exercise discretion and self-care.
We're like so fucking unhinged. We're back. Guess who's back? Back again. Shady's back. Welcome back to Survivor's Guide to True Crime. I'm Kim.
And I'm Kara.
Here we go. Let's do this. Chicken, chicken, chicken. Have you heard the new Eminem song? Girl, I had a countdown set and had it playing the minute it premiered with the video. Like, I watched it with the video. I didn't know it was coming. How did you know it was coming? I'm very online. Very online. You are very online. But my favorite thing on the internet right now is the people that are like, oh, you guys are offended by the new Eminem song? And it's like, have you not listened to any of his other songs? And it's the I Will Kill You song. Yeah. And I'm like, y'all, I feel like I've always felt really soups awkward. You know, it's like rapping along to Eminem, knowing every word. Oh, dude, I was taking all 4 children down to a little over an hour drive for basketball camp. And I am listening to it on repeat. And I have like the lyrics pulled up and everything. And
Oh my God, of course you.
3 out of 4 kids had their AirPods in. And the other one, I'm pretty sure, was just dissociating the whole time because I'm like just in it. It's like, you guys don't even know. It's so catchy. It's like, oh my God, I know all of the words. It's like, how? Anyway, it's like the perfect throwback, though, of everything that we loved and was just... How can the younger generation not know what he's about? You literally say, I stan. Do you know what that comes from? The root of stan is the Eminem song Stan, where he has an actual stalker who loves him so much that he unalives himself and his girlfriend while he's leaving him like a message about it.
Yeah.
That's where... Oh, we stand. Do you? Do you really? Because
Do you know what that means?
like, oh, Romeo and Juliet. Really? That's the best you got? That was a wild 3 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so hi, welcome back. Hello. So we're going to do an episode of just us, and then we are going to get back into our regular guest rotation. We've had a lot of things that have come up and we want to discuss. And the timing of this episode and the things that we want to discuss are kind of pertinent because this week marks 22 years since I was kidnapped. So it's kind of appropriate for us to have these conversations today with you guys. Welcome to Survivor's Guide to True Crime. This is us in our natural state. I am caffeinating at 2:30 in the afternoon as we're recording this, which I can guarantee will be a poor decision later, but I don't care because I'm drinking it out of my captive audience mug, patrons. You know, that's later Kara's problem. This is the story of my life. Wait. Have you heard that, do we say the F word here? I do. Okay. Have you seen or heard? I don't know. Are we going to get bleeped? Are we going to get like... It's literally our show. We can do what we want. Touche. Have you heard the sound where it's like, let's fucking go? No. I guess. Let's fucking go? I'm like, that's how I feel right now. Let's go. This is actually a good disclaimer. If you have little ones in the car or they're around because it's summertime, you're going to want to not have this going over your speakers. Yeah. I mean, we do try to give, as always, you know, we try to give like content warnings and things like that before we talk about potentially triggering things. But that being said, I feel like the further we go into this journey of sharing our stories in a public platform, we become more and more unhinged. So the warning is for us in general as humans. It's a blanket warning. You've been warned. We are the content advisory. Listen, I'm holding my mug that says captive audience for our Patreon. So if you don't understand our unhinged dark humor, you know, you're probably not going to like the merch I'm working on. Well, I am holding my teeny tiny little Alani can. I think it's called Alani. I don't know. I've never heard it out loud. I think so, but I can't drink those things. They taste like, I know. They taste like the bottom of a boot. They taste like a sweeter version of like the melted Icy Pops. Okay, so I don't like necessarily this one, but it came in a variety pack. But there are a few of them that I really like. And sadly, one of them is the Kimmy K. But it's only at Target, I think.
I've heard that one's good, though.
It's real good. It's real good.
Speaking of Kim K and Alani Nu, did you see that Paris Hilton did one?
No,
I think. Did I make that up? I might have made it up.
I would support that.
I think she's so cool.
Dude,
I love her.
the Paris Hilton Renaissance, for those of you who don't know or who have been alive as long as we have, you will remember Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie. So it was Nicole Richie, Paris Hilton had a show called The Simple Life, and they straight up were acting like ditzes. If you've ever seen the videos of where they cut and break character, it's fascinating. But that's how they were presented. Same with like Girls Next Door, where it's the Playboy Mansion. Like,
Right. Britney Spears. Like, we grew up in this era where it was like you had to be skinny and girls weren't taken seriously. And I will say, I've watched all the way up to whatever's currently aired of the Paris Hilton reality show that she's doing now. And I watched her documentary. I have got so much respect for that girl. I mean, I think it's important to be able to take in new content and change your mind about someone, because I didn't really have very many opinions, especially like nice opinions about what I knew of her, because obviously I don't know her in real life, and I've changed it.
yeah, but think about the amount of options we had to consume Paris Hilton media, right? There's not very many. There's not social media. It's not that outlet.
TMZ and Perez Hilton.
Right. So what you are being presented with is the persona that they are acting. And so now in this day and age, it's really cool to see some of like the teen idols, regardless of what they were famous for, what they're doing now. Paris Hilton is kind of a marketing genius. And by kind of, I mean she absolutely is. Yeah. Like, she has her brand nailed down, and it's a platform for advocacy. I adore everything that she does, and she is one badass survivor who's constantly empowering other people. And it's not like she's doing it for show. She just looks real freaking good while she does it.
I just think she's so cool. As I was watching this, I think I was consuming it like right at the end of my pregnancy. I was watching it, and my husband was like, "What are you watching? Why are you watching this?" And I'm like, "Listen, if you watch this with an open mind like I did, it will completely change your mind." He's like, "Oh, she's not just like some dumb bimbo blonde." I was like, "No, that is a part she played." So anyway, if you haven't consumed that, super interesting and fun.
Kara, you've been having some things recently going on. Do you want to make mention of said things?
I have nothing going on. How dare you? Yeah. So, fun little thing that has happened recently. Some of you may have seen. I logged on to TikTok recently and realized I was getting all of these tags on content. And I was like, what is this? And I go to it, and it's Bonnie Lou, and I immediately know who Bonnie is. Bonnie is my captor, Richard Marcovanet's first wife. So it's who he was married to whenever he kidnapped and murdered Sophia and Katie and Kristen. And so I immediately recognized the name, and as I often do when anyone is telling stories surrounding my own, I approached it with a little bit of, I would say I was cautiously optimistic that things would be done correctly, but I'm always leaning more towards the cautious side because I've been burned a lot. And so I started kind of consuming her telling her version of events and her story, which Kim and I are endlessly interested by all aspects. It's one of the things that we hope within this podcast to bring you is various sides of these stories. So when you're talking about family members of offenders, whether that's a serial killer or any other type of offender, a stalker, anything else, they are victims in essence as well. And so I've always been curious about that side of things. And so I was consuming her content and just kind of watching, kind of sitting back and watching to see how it goes. And I think she has done it with very, she's done it very, what's the word I want? Eloquently and graciously. Yeah. And she has not really broached my side. When she touched on it, it was, but go check her out.
Yep.
Here is her name. Here's her content. She's amazing. She said, she's a badass. All I did was get a divorce. And I was like, that's adorable. So
with us.
yeah. Yeah. So I reached out to her. It took me a little bit to reach out because, like I told Kim, I'm like, what do you even say? Hey, I think we have something weird in common. Which is what I actually said. Because I'm awkward. But she was just so incredibly kind and continues to be very, very kind. And I have recently emailed her and extended the opportunity for her to be on the podcast, which I think would be really interesting. I think you guys would love that. And we have a lot of really cool people that we hope to bring you this season, but that's one of those. And I will say, kind of the coolest thing from this experience is what I have seen happening in the true crime community, which is the number of people that are, one, tagging me in her content, two, answering questions about me because they know me and they're pointing back to me. So they're answering the questions for me. And three, the number of people who have actually reached out to me or commented on my stuff and said, hey, I see this is happening, but I don't want to consume that if you're not okay with it. And I've been floored by that. And I love to see it. It's so cool that we are in this world and we are watching the tides change where people are beginning to be more conscious consumers of true crime and understanding the ethicality of it all. And gosh, I just love it. I think it's been so cool to see.
It was really great. I was early to that first video because you sent it to me. And so our conversation was good because we have a lot of viewpoints and you're bringing years and years of knowing this. I know this story and I know this story, but I haven't necessarily heard this one beyond what was already included in the police reports. And so I think you in real time are working things out. I loved that we included the Patreon audience. Like, here, we don't know
how this is going to end.
Yeah. Thing. And it was really cool to see that feedback in real time. But when you finally were able to connect, it's like that, okay, this is an okay thing. And regardless of whether or not she chooses to share her story on the podcast or whatever, like for every survivor, we wish them the best and the ability to maintain autonomy over their own story. And I've loved the way that she has gone about it so far. So is cool the right word? Because I would use the word cool. I mean,
it's the right word for us, but I know that's like, I sent her an email and one of the things I said is that I find it interesting. And I was like, is interesting the right word? But yeah, I mean, it is. It's interesting to hear these different perspectives.
Tell me, without going super therapist, how are you feeling? Because we get a lot of questions about this. And some people feel anxious or they forget completely or they celebrate. What is your feeling this time around?
It sort of always sneaks up on me because so one thing to know about me for context for this is I historically can never remember the difference between June and July. I know that is like a really dumb thing, but it's like in my brain, I cannot keep them straight. Like I have a trip that's next month in July. I told my husband it was in June and he booked something for us in June. And I was like, oh no, sorry, I got the dates wrong after we'd already booked it. So this just happened like a couple weeks ago. So I can't ever remember where we are in the year. And so we have a birthday in June in my family. And so after that birthday, I often am kind of like, oh yeah, it's June. In between that, and then one of my best friends from high school has a birthday, and her birthday was the same day that we found out he killed himself. So I always know that is coming up, and that helps me realize that the anniversary is coming up. Does that make sense?
Yes, but when did that start that you got those two?
Always.
Even before?
So my friend from high school's birthday was always an indicator. Like I would know that it was coming up.
I was like, right, it's on the same day every year. No, I mean,
yeah, no.
I mean, prior to kidnapping, did you get June and July mixed up?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So this isn't
No, this is not new. No.
This is my neurospicy.
No. It's just one of those things. Like, I don't remember numbers at all. So, like, fun fact about me: literally every single year, I have to Google myself to figure out what the date is. I am not lying. I Googled it today, so we are not the same.
Sometimes those are inside thoughts.
I have to. Like, I'm like,
But you can have them in this microphone. It's fine.
'cause, I mean, I know it's in June, but I'm like, is it 22nd? Is it 24th? It's 24th.
Hey. I have it on my calendar. In case you were wondering.
Because I don't.
I
Because I'm
do.
like, that would be really weird to have it on my calendar.
And I keep it just on my iPhone one. There's a few dates that I keep in there just like around.
Yours is on mine. Huh? Yours is on mine. Yeah, but I don't have mine.
Mine's easy to remember for me because it's also my mom's birthday. So like,
Right. So like, yeah. So you have this thing.
Right.
Right. And for me, I think because of the dissociation, it's just like it's out there. It doesn't feel like it's my story. It feels like it's someone else's story in a lot of ways when I tell it, because it's so dissociated. So it always sneaks up on me in some way. I'm like, oh shoot.
Right. That's the thing that's happening.
Yeah, it's the 18th or whatever. And I'm like, oh, we're a couple days out from that. It kind of always sneaks up on me. It's funny that the timing of all of this stuff with these videos is happening around the same time, because it's bringing me back up in the algorithms of social media. And so everyone is just asking all these questions again and again and again. And I have more or less decided to just freaking lean into it. Just lean into it on TikTok. That's all anybody wants to talk to me about, whatever. So I'm like, well, I guess I should do some videos like retelling, because those continue to go viral. And now, like, since the last time that I told my story on social media it was the 20-year anniversary. So it's 2 years ago. Those videos are 2 years old and they are continuing to garner comments and views. So I think it's time to do another one. So if you see a 10-minute long video from me on the Tickety Talk, people want it on Instagram too. So maybe I'll put it on YouTube. Oh, fuck. I don't want to do YouTube.
Tara's kidnapping 10-minute version.
Kara's version.
Kara's version. I have found that as well. It'll be some of my old videos that people are looking to as a reference point, because I have noticed I don't do the retelling. It's like I put it out once and then I expect, everybody just knows that it's there, but they don't. I mean,
They don't.
Marketing 101 tells you somebody has to see something 7 times for it to stick in their brain. And I continuously get in this loop of, well, it has to be fresh. It has to be brand new. When actually you can talk about the same things over and over. That's why I never end up posting. I have posting paralysis. And I'm like, this is really great, but I said something similar. I don't want to copyright myself.
Meanwhile, I feel like I shit post. I'm just like, I haven't posted anything. Let me just throw something up there really quick.
Yura, how do you have so many stories today?
I know. And because I don't talk to people in real life.
That's fair.
Because I stay inside.
That's fair. Oh, I will say though, I have mounds and mounds of videos and pictures and things, that some of which I will post and some of them I will not. I went to St. Louis and I did a speech there for YWCA, and they were fantastic. Like, this is one of the easiest organizations I have ever worked with from start to finish. They pulled together an incredible group of women, especially. A lot of them were nurses or looking to get into forensic nursing, therapists, advocates, like all kinds of people. And I got the opportunity. Originally, I was just going to take my niece with me. And she is almost 15. So she's known this about Auntie for many years. She was one of them that came across when my stuff was used without my permission on TikTok. And like, we've had these conversations at different stages in life, just the same as I do with my kids. And so this was the first one where she's going to get to see the keynote in its entirety. She's seen plenty of other things, or like acceptance speeches or whatever they might be. But I was really excited to bring her. Well, then it ended up that my mom could come my mom can come too. And also, okay, the littles don't have school. Who's going to watch them? I'm not going to dump them off on Mike while he's also trying to work. And the boys were in basketball, so it wasn't like divide and conquer time. So they came too. And it was the 5 of us. And it ended up that we stayed for a couple extra days and did it as a vacation. And let me tell you, I don't think I looked at social media at all. At all. Like there were just notifications and things. I'm like, I am killing my phone battery every single day, multiple times a day, because I just have my camera and my video on. And it kind of made me miss like the old school on your shoulder.
Yeah.
I always think of April O'Neil, Channel 6 News from Ninja Turtles with the huge camera thing on your shoulder. But like that's all I wanted. I would have been fine completely without my phone if not for needing Ubers and And it was so much fun though and very present. So I will post some of those things, but it's a really good trip in general. So yes, for work, but also
I think that's so fun when you're able to take your family along on these things. I had a keynote in Orlando last year and I was pregnant. I was about 6 months pregnant and the place where I was staying, I saw that they had like a lazy river and like a full-on water park. And I told my husband, I was like, it would be really stupid if you guys didn't come. I'm going to be at this place without y'all. I don't want to be at a place with a water park without my kids.
Well, and that's the one where you flew back and then drove and it was like back to back to back to get them.
Yeah, that was my big, I had in 2.5 weeks, I had 4 keynotes all over the country. And so I ended up switching my flights and flying back, and then I had to get up the next morning and drive to Orlando with the kids. But it was fine because I didn't have a baby. But yeah, it's just so special to be able to share fun things with them, especially as they're getting bigger. I don't think I've told you this yet. Look, I have freaking feelings now. I don't like it. I feel like I've missed the last year with my kids. Obviously not the baby. But I feel like between work and travel and being so freaking sick for 10 months and then having a newborn, I mean, you don't come out of the newborn fog for 3 months at least. So I'm right. She's 4 months. I'm just kind of coming out of it in the last couple of weeks. And I feel like I've missed out on my kids and they're 10 and 8. And it's like they don't need me in the last year. And it sucks. It's hurting me so bad, man. Like they used to come in the mornings first thing and like, good morning, mommy. And like they were just my sweet little guys. And now they're like tiny little men.
That are texting my children in the mornings as well, by the way. Their group text with a million emojis. I'm like, stop spamming. Oh, everyone does it.
Yeah.
I love this age though, because they're their own little people with their own stories and takes on life. And oh my gosh, I love it. Really quick before we completely move on, one of the things that my niece had said afterwards, because I was like, well, what'd you think? Because back to what we were saying, it's not acting necessarily, but you get in your groove. Like I'm on, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I felt like. So then when we were back on our way to lunch and it's just us, I was like, well, what'd you think? She's like, I loved it. But I especially loved all of the people that came up afterwards. And I was like, that's my favorite part too.
Yeah. That's always our favorite parts.
There's not a take your kids to work day for what we do. So this is kind of cool to have that adjacent ability for them to see mommy at work.
I think it's so cool also when people that know you in just like your everyday life are able to see you in your working life. Because like my husband hasn't seen me do keynotes terribly often. It's not like you know, Mike, you and Mike co-present often. So he sees you in that arena. And so every time he sees me doing that, afterwards, he's always just like, you're so freaking good at this. And I'm like, it's like it's my job or something. I don't know. So it's like the joke between us. I'm always like it's my job. But it always amazes him because it's a skill that he doesn't possess, like the ability to be a public speaker. He's always just like, don't you need to prepare? Like, don't you need to write a speech? Or I'm like, yeah, I'll do it right before I go.
I'm just gonna raw dog it. It's fine. Well, but it's the same thing like with your friends.
Yeah.
When you see them or they have their business voice on
Oh,
suddenly.
yeah, like their phone voice. Yeah.
Oh, you're an adult over here? This is so strange. And I'm used to seeing Mike in that element and being there when we worked together and then now. So that's not weird to me, but like I want to go and have you seen the thing where the girls all put a PowerPoint together of what they do at work?
Oh, that's so funny.
That would be amazing. I
love
sort
that.
of understand what my friends do. I don't know.
Right? No, who does?
But that's why we get along so well is because this is a very, very, very niche thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Niche.
Yes. Like I have so many great ideas for like merch and I'm like, I'm the only one who could wear that. Cool.
Like, oh, let me tell you about our day yesterday in case you were not following Kara's stories. I was on fire.
Dude.
Not drugs.
Fire. No, yeah. I just okay. So another thing I haven't told you is my husband's like, the number one thing I hear you say more than anything is, look what I sent to Kim. Or look what Kim sent me. He's like, look at this thing that Kim sent me. Look at this thing I sent to Kim.
Joe's just jealous.
So like today I was showing him something. I was like, oh, let me show you this thing. And he's like, say it correctly. And I was like, this thing I sent to Kim. He's like, I know who you sent it to. I'm like, yeah, okay. It was her. I'm actually going to make this like a mini series on my social of all the unhinged shit that you say to me. just so you know. You didn't know that, but now you know.
I give a shit. Whatever.
So let me just read you guys some of these zingers. Hold on, I gotta scroll.
Explain your context because by the time this publishes, will you have released that merch line?
Whatever. I will at least have talked about it. So who knows? Depends on if my child allows me.
Strategic here.
Yeah, I no strategery here. Okay, so how did this start? Someone sent me. It was you. You sent me the video, the Nike commercial. Obviously. Yes. Okay, so it was this Nike commercial, and it's like this woman getting chased by a serial killer
from the 90s that got cut. By the by,
yeah, because it's too dark, and is run basically so you can outrun serial killers. And I was like, oh my god, this is genius. I spy new merch. Kara's Serial Killer Escape Artist Training Club. Like, I work out so that I can escape serial killers, basically, is the whole vibe behind this, right? And so I'm creating merch. And so I send Kim this, some of these ideas, and I said, the slogan is, ain't nobody fitting to get me again. And her response is,
clients say, oh my god, that was one time.
And so I was like, okay, that is hysterical. So then we go on to talk about other stuff, and go ahead and hit us with some of these zingers, Kim.
I don't know. I don't have the text. Like, I literally was typing them as I thought about them, and then they're out of my brain. So why don't you do a dramatic reading for us?
Okay. Kim says, quick link in bio. And of course, my response is, what? And she said, didn't you have to unscrew a quick link with your teeth? And I was like, oh my God, you're on another level today. And I said, I posted a video of me watering my grass last week, and I didn't even think a thing about it. And the internet said, bloop, like the big eyeballs. And I said, the jokes I can make about myself are endless. And Kim says, friends don't let friends water flowers alone. The gardening buddy system. And then here are the two most unhinged ones. The first of which I will read. The first one I will read to you is the one that I've already posted. They're probably already both on there by now. Can't remember what I walked into this room for, but can remember the serial number off a tub and the phone number of a serial killer's dentist. And then the other one, this is perhaps mine and my husband's favorite.
Oh God, I don't even remember what I said. I'm what? No.
Oh my God. Kids these days are supposed to sit in 5-point harness seats until they're like 15. When I was 15, all I had was a Rubbermaid container. To which I said, unhinged. Un-effing hinged, Kim.
Safety third, everyone. I forgot it.
Oh my God. So again, this is, like, sure, I could put that on a t-shirt. Who else is wearing that?
Right.
It's us. It's us. Client said, it was one time. God bless it. It's so ridiculous.
I'll wear it. Don't worry. It's
Right.
solidarity. Well, and then I'm like, okay, we don't want that to come off as like the people who market like, murder shirts or who's your favorite.
Oh, yeah, no,
serial
it's us
killer
making,
with blood
like-
spatters. It's like, I made a shirt for myself.
No, yeah, like Kim 100% can make jokes about my trauma because our humor is the same. She's my people, but also like she says it and I'm like, it's so true. Like I just don't possess the wit to say those things.
And you have to take note of me when I'm witty because I'll forget it too. So
Apparently you said this less than 24 hours ago, Kimberly.
I did not have to memorize a serial number. Would you like to know the contents of an entire hour-long conversation from 18 years ago? By the way, my trauma is old enough now to vote this year.
Love that. Mine's old enough to drink and then some. I was saying something about talking about that because my kids and the neighbor kids were playing games and they made a comment about trans, but my kids aren't in public school. And so their exposure to these kind of things is pretty low. And so we just haven't had to have this conversation necessarily. And I was like, oh, we have to have this conversation now. I was like, we'll go over like differences in sexuality and things like that whenever the time is right for it. And we haven't really had the porn talk either because my older son can't stand having these conversations.
Really?
Like, oh my God. Because remember when the first time we had the conversation, I read him that book and I was like, do you have any thoughts or comments? And he's like, I wish you wouldn't have told me this.
No.
That was, oh God. Yeah.
so
So he was just like, I don't want to know about this. I don't want to talk about this. And so I was talking to him about like what trans means because I want to be the source for this information for my children. I don't want them getting information from Joe Bob down the street or so-and-so from YouTube. Like I want to be that person and I want to be the person that they can come to if they have questions, comments, concerns, or if heaven forbid something happens to them. And so I initially had the conversation about sex with both my kids. I do that with my boys, obviously. I do it one-on-one and separate because they're different ages. And I want them to not be like embarrassed if they have to ask questions, like their brother's gonna be like, you idiot. So my oldest is just like absolutely horrified, does not want to talk about any of these things, and just sits there and looks like he's about to cry the whole time.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. And then my youngest is like, that's weird. Like we had the pornography talk and I was like, sometimes you might be going through something on the internet and something might pop up and it's going to trigger a part of your brain. It's going to be very difficult for you to look away. And I said, some people take pictures of themselves naked and post it online. And he was like, what? Why? That's weird. Why would somebody do that? And I was like, everybody does different stuff,
Some people are smarter and get paid for it. We don't know.
Right. And I was like, so, think about like, what is your favorite thing that if you were sitting at a table and I put this food in front of you and I left the room and I said, don't look at it, don't touch it, definitely don't eat it, that it would be really, really difficult. And he's like, probably a foot-long cookie from Subway. Apparently he's been thinking real hard about these foot-long cookies from Subway.
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Me either. And I said, so, when you come across these images online, they trigger that same part of your brain where it's going to light it up and it's going to be really, really hard for you to look away. And sometimes it'll pop up unexpected, or you might be at somebody else's house and they'll be like, look at this. I said, and it's going to be almost impossible for you to look away. But I want you to be able to come to me and tell me because it's my job to keep you safe in that way. And so he was just like, okay. And then my older son was just like, are we done here? I was like, sure.
Your excuse. But it's good to plant that seed at least so that when it does come up or they have a question about it, like hopefully you're opening that door to conversation. If you're showing that you're not awkward, even if they are, then they're going to know, okay, I feel weird, but I know that I'll get an honest answer or something from mom or dad.
Yeah.
And it's a little different because my two are, four, but especially the two youngers are only a year and a half apart. And I have done these conversations predominantly with them together. And it's because everything up until this point hasn't been anything to do with assigned gender. So I will say one of the funniest things, though, because they had a lot of questions about menstrual cycles and things like that. And I was like, okay, good job, mom. Like, pat myself on the back later. But I'm like, both of you need to know this information.
Yeah.
Like, both of you do. This is something that's completely natural. It happens in the human body. And there's no shame or stigma attached to it if I present it in the same way. And so they had the opportunity to ask me questions. I had a really good animated video that, as a reference,
good. I love that.
Planned Parenthood actually has some fantastic videos.
Someone specifically asked me about like, what is good information to share with your kids for education for sex and reproduction that's just scientifically driven with like, and it's and several people said Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
So we can put that in the show notes.
Yeah. And go through and look at them too. Like, I had watched them in advance. And my kids are also really good at me saying, you know what? I'm having trouble thinking of a way to explain that in a way that you'd understand. Can I have a second? And they're really good about respecting that.
Yeah.
And for this one specifically, I already knew that it was there. And so when I was showing them, it's just animated. It has nothing to do with values. It is simply scientific.
Yeah.
And so that's like the big piece I think some people get hung up on because they don't want other people or sources sharing values-based education.
Yes.
Completely fine. But they do need to know.
It's so hard to have those conversations without your values creeping in too.
I have not had that problem yet because
I didn't either. But my husband, if he would have had the conversation, he would have had a more difficult time. After I was, so he was kind of like in the periphery as I was having these conversations with the boys. And afterwards, he's like, well, I would have said this. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, no. Because the way I approached it, the way I explained trans, for instance, is I've had the menstrual cycles, I've had the conception talk, the scientific driven, because we had those conversations when I was pregnant. I wanted them to be prepared for that because I had a home birth. So they were here when she was born. They weren't in the room. They didn't see it, but they were there shortly after.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure they were prepared. And so they know that a sperm and an egg makes a baby. And so when we were talking about trans, I came at it from a purely scientific explanation. I said, you know, you and your brother were created when there was an X and a Y chromosome, and your little sister was created when there were two X chromosomes. So that is what determines what you are at birth. That is what determines if you grow a penis or a vagina. And I said, and simply trans is when you don't identify with whatever your assigned gender was at birth. Said you can, you know, dress as the opposite gender, you feel like the opposite gender, you can get surgery. And I said, I just want to make sure it's really clear because if you're using those terms, I want to make sure you're using them correctly. And I'm very much still learning. I think many of us who are not actively in the community, but are trying to be allies, are always learning. We're always seeking to learn from the people that are in the community the same way we hope that you guys do from us as survivors. But I wanted to approach it from a scientific standpoint only,
right,
without judgment or morality or anything else.
Yeah. And that's really important. I mean, we started having these conversations really early.
Of course.
And we came at this in a different way that I may not have planned, but it actually ended up being the best. So I had two really close friends that were going through IVF and talking to the kids, just, you know, again, high level about IVF, and they're going to the hospital, or our friends down in Denver, and this is why. And so like just very high level, but both kids are super inquisitive and I don't want to lie to them. I will very often, like I said, say, let me figure out a way to talk about that or tell you in terms that you'd understand. And fun fact, everyone, if you don't know the answer, it's okay to consult with an expert, such as a therapist, which I find myself doing constantly, or your kid's pediatrician. That's an okay question. Yeah. They love getting that kind of question, and they're great resources for that. So that's kind of how I had gone about it. But for IVF, it's like, oh, well, these are people that we see often, and this is something that they're going through. And both of them are very open and honest about it and share that so that there's less stigma surrounding it, because the infertility community in general is just, my heart hurts all the time. So as I explain these things, it's like, okay, so they're extracting from our friend sperm. And this is my friend. She's going to go under and they're going to extract an egg. And so how many eggs are you born with? Where are they stored? Like, so we got into like the science behind that. It's really cool. And this is over, like, we're talking months that we're talking about these things. And okay, well, then they're going to try and combine that sperm and that egg. And they're doing so in a petri dish. So this is completely taking intercourse out of conception, which is awesome because that's a great way to talk about it with kids. I'm like, and there's videos you can watch, like, here's how it is in here, it incubates, like, and then they're going to do something called implantation. Here's how they have to get their uterus ready. And this is something like, it's all interconnected. And the more that you know and that you're willing to learn, the better your conversations with your kids are going to be too. So we're talking about this for months on end. And my friend had a successful retrieval implantation and found out that they were pregnant. And I got to share that really good news with them. And my daughter is staring off into space for a little bit. And she goes, wait, so she's having chicks?
That's what I was going to say. So we have
the egg. Like, you can do your very best. And still.
Yes, we have chickens. And so, like I said, my oldest does not even want to be here for these conversations. I think that he shuts his brain off. But my younger son is like, you have eggs inside of you?
Right?
I know. I just know he's picturing eggs like chicken eggs. And I'm like, yes, I have a lot of eggs. And I can just picture his little, like, so in some ways. Oh, I love that kid. His little brain. It's hard. I just know that he is picturing that I have a belly full of eggs. I know that's what he pictures. It's just so funny.
Well, and that's why it was cool to point back then to the graphics. I'm like, they're teeny, teeny, tiny. Like, look at this pencil. They're even smaller than the very teeny, tiny tip of this pencil. And you're born with all of them. And so, like, it was nice to introduce pregnancy or conception in that way, because then when you get into intercourse, that can be a values-based conversation depending on who's having it. And you can consult with a therapist, doctor, expert in the field.
Or expert of your choice.
Yeah, if you don't feel like you are adequately prepared for that. And I will say, through all of these conversations, be it about just bodily functions or anyone else, these are some that we have at the same time together, because it's science. They need to know these things. And still, they feel comfortable asking over and over, Mommy, can I ask you a question? I'm like, sure.
I mean, and that comes down to your kids, right? Like, I know that my kids are vastly different, and there is so much competition between brothers and fighting and all the things. So I just wanted to remove that from the equation. But one of the things that I have found interesting, because my parents never had these conversations with me, I learned things from school and experience and the world and the internet. Yay! But I have found that it is considerably less awkward than I expected it to be.
Yeah. But we also talk about these things in a very public format constantly.
Right.
And I think that has helped, if nothing else, our entire generation raising kids.
Yeah.
We know that if we don't know the answer, we don't have to take just what our aunt told us randomly to wine in at some point.
What some kid told you on the bus.
Yeah. My kids do go to public school, and there have been some, what's this mean? I'm like, oh God, who said that?
Yeah, that is like the one thing that my husband and I come back to quite often, is because our kids are a little more sheltered, like in the homeschool environment. Like, yeah, they have plenty of socialization, trust me. But even the kids that they primarily are socializing with they have age appropriate knowledge, which I feel like is not even, I feel like that's changed so much from what it would have been for us.
Yeah.
But we are able to introduce these topics maybe a little bit later than most people would, and have these conversations maybe a little bit later. But I mean, honestly, after I have those conversations, I'm like, good job, Sarah.
You walk away and you're like,
I did such a good job.
oh yeah, I didn't like when I see penis in front of them. Go,
Dude, like when I made the cookie connection, or like,
you're like, dang, where'd you get that from? Good job.
right? like it just comes to me, man. Or even I was talking about like DNA, and I was like, like Jurassic Park, they extracted the DNA.
Hell yeah. That is a teaching
So
moment.
yeah, so I just, I'm trying to make all of these references to things that they understand to help it be applicable for them. So I don't know. I just, every time I have these moments, I think it's so fun. Like I remember having, I can't remember if it was when I was pregnant or right after, that I was talking to my younger son about, it must have been before I had her. We were talking about menstruation and how it's shedding the uterine lining. Homeboy thought it was like peeling the glue off your hand. I mean, he thought that I was losing a whole, like, he thought it came out in one big old, like, here's my uterine lining. I'm like, well, in theory, no. But he also,
and you had a little model to the bathroom.
we gave them a lot of choice in what they saw as far as like my delivery within reason, because again, is it appropriate? Is it not? You make that decision yourself, but it is scientific. It, like, none of us got here without the conception. Like, none of us got here without that. So after you have the baby, you have to just deliver the placenta. The kids were already in the room, like oohing and awing over the baby. And then I had to deliver the placenta. And we were like, you guys don't have to be here. And my middle son was like, I can't look away. He was like, I wish I had not. He's like, I wish I had not seen that, but I can't stop looking. He was like, are you okay?
It's a car accident. Oh.
He could not stop looking. And my midwife is so funny because she's like, Joe, come in here and look at this. And Joe's like, later, he's like, I'm going to be honest. I was trying not to pass out. And he's like, but I couldn't tell her no.
Yeah.
Because she was like, look at this placenta. It's so amazing. And he was like,
oh, God. I will say Mike is really good about those conversations. Like, he doesn't get grossed out by that kind of stuff. But also, as I was thinking about it, even though he grew up in a really modest household, and like, hey, look at us, no childhood trauma. Ha, ha, ha. He has to talk about those things in his course of work all the time.
Right.
And so, like, there's not that boundary issue, I guess. And so it makes it a little bit easier. I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but I text you after you sent me the birth video, which, hey, even between best friends, she's still like, let me know, birth video incoming if you're ready.
Do you want to see it?
Because
I don't care if you see all my parts at this point. I'm like,
like,
here, you can see my boobs. I know. I'm just like, it's a vagina. Half the population has them.
I know. I have my own, so.
Right.
But then I asked, I was like, is it okay if my daughter sees this? Because she wanted to know, like, how many centimeters has she had? Is she birthing yet?
Oh, yeah. She was like there for the ride.
Oh, yeah. She was in it. And you're like, I don't care. So we got to sit there and I'm like, look at how well she's breathing. This is how she's doing. And so she had that reference point from that animated video too. To say, okay, so this is how, and it was not, that looked like the most peaceful effing birth ever. I know it was.
It wasn't.
I know it wasn't, but from the outside looking in, I'm like, ta-da! Here she is, and it's still clean water. What?
Yeah.
I always figured that's why the pictures after are black and white.
I think one of the most important things for me is that I feel like we are very, very often as a society not prepared for what labor actually looks like. Mm-hmm. It's like if we have not been present in those moments, our only point of reference is what we see in the media. And what we see on the media is women going, what you just saw me do to my dogs. Right. I did plenty of that. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted my boys especially to see that labor can absolutely happen in a medical setting. It can happen in so many different settings, but I most importantly wanted them to see that it is a natural thing that can happen. If that would not have happened, if it would have been different, cool, no big deal. Trust me, I was begging for an epidural at one point. I told my husband after a couple days, I was like, hey, if it weren't for the fact that I love my midwife and we are like in it up to my eyeballs, I would be in the hospital with an epidural begging to have this baby cut out of me. But I just wanted my boys to be able to be good partners one day and be able to be there for, whoever they decide to be with whenever the time comes to have a baby, because I mean, my husband was he was floored by all the things because it was his first real experience seeing me have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So all that to say, if you are in this journey of how do we have these conversations with our children, we are very much learning this and acting on it. And I still haven't decided how I'm going to have the conversation of what sexual assault is, because we haven't had to have that conversation yet. And so, we're all still learning, and I'll probably consult some experts. And, we've had conversations surrounding what is right and wrong, obviously, in terms of what they are allowed to say. And we've laid a lot of the groundwork. But in terms of my story and explaining that part of my story and what that means, we haven't really gotten to that. So I think we're coming up on having that conversation. And, just there's a lot of good information out there, and know that we're learning it all together. Is that okay without triggering you?
No, I just had a thought though.
Mm-hmm.
You are following the same kind of timeline with talking to the boys about that as you did with healing. Because even when you and I first started talking, you will talk heavily about the kidnapping, about the psychology behind it, the things that went on, but not about the sexual assault itself. And it's almost like you started, when you did more therapy and breath work and being more present in your trauma, that's when you really started piecing apart the things that you had dissociated from. And that's kind of, I feel like you're still learning that and deciding how you feel about it. And how do you talk to your boys about it if you're still actively trying to heal? It's kind of the same thing that we talk about, where we're speaking from a place of a scar, not an open wound. And we don't want to get that on our kids. Like my kids have known that I was assaulted for a very, very long time. They still don't know details about the assault.
Right. But they also, like, do they ever need to?
I don't think so. I mean, I know that they'll be curious at some point. And the older already is, and he's point blank asked. And I have said, buddy, I'm not quite comfortable telling you that yet. My daughter hops in. She's like, you can just only worry about telling us what you're comfortable with right now. I was like,
love her.
I was like, oh, dang. My son, he's like, yeah, Mommy, you don't have to talk about it. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, gosh, no. You guys. I was like,
little sweetheart.
On our drive, it's always the driving, because it's the same as EMDR. They don't have to make direct eye contact, and you have bilateral stimulation. So driving and talking.
Man, driving is like the best teaching moment. I find like my best teaching when driving.
Yeah. But he's like, he was talking and I was like, okay, guys, wait, pause from this conversation. I just want you to know that I'm not triggered by the things you're asking, but you guys just did an awesome job. You get to practice on me so that when somebody else tells you someday and they haven't told anybody, that you will be prepared.
I love that.
And my daughter goes, and we will start by believing. I was like, oh, dear Lord. I love this.
I love it so much.
And I love that they clearly know what they mean, but I have told them over and over, like, you get to practice on Mommy, because this is what I do, and I'm okay with that. But I'm not ready to talk about exactly what happened. They know all kinds of things about the investigation and the prosecution, because that's where they're at, and they can.
Well, I come back to this all the time too, though, because people, I'm sure, ask you too, what have you told your kids?
Yeah.
What do they know?
You would be shocked. I know you wouldn't be shocked. Like, oh, I can't believe you're telling your children that and you're shaping their minds. And no, it's simply a consent conversation.
Right.
I did not allow this person into my room, and I did not allow this person to touch me, be in my space, any of those things.
Yeah.
And that's all that they need to know right now. And that is a common misconception, is that when I talk to my kids about what happened to me, I'm talking about those details. I have not, nor do I want to right now.
No,
I don't need to.
Like, it makes me think of, I had someone ask me recently on TikTok, how do you feel about the fact that the movie did not include the actual assault? And I was like, I don't think it's necessary. I never think it's necessary. Like, whenever I'm interviewed and someone wants to hit on any of the details, I'm like, that is not relevant. It is sufficient to, or even how many times was I I don't think any of that is relevant.
No.
I think the relevancy is there was an assault.
Yes.
There was not even that. There was a breach of consent.
There you go.
That's it. Like, that's all anyone needs to know. And so I know my children well enough to know that I don't think it's the right time to have a conversation on what constitutes an assault. And you just have to, that is a moving target. Like, it changes every day. So you have to judge your child and their ability to comprehend and be mature about it.
The conversation with them is a moving target, not consent. That's correct. That's an important delineation here. Yeah.
No, the conversation and when and how to have that conversation is a moving target. It's going to change consistently from one day to the next.
And it's not a one and done. This is something that you have to open that door and have constantly. So if you aren't comfortable holding those conversations and having them, you got to find a way to work through that in therapy or with a partner or someone to fill that gap, because if they're not getting the information from you, they're getting it somewhere.
Yeah.
Can we segue from that? I don't even know.
Yeah. How the fuck do we segue out of that?
Anyway, we don't do segues. So this is the end of the episode.
Yeah. Fun conversations with Kim and Kara. More of those to be had throughout this journey that we're all on together. It's just kind of, whatever pops in our wee little brains. And today it was apparently a conversation on all the things with our children. This was not what we originally planned for this episode, but
This was supposed to be an intro.
yeah. So fun fact, we actually started recording this as an intro to our first guest episode. And we were like, wait, this needs to be a standalone episode. So we kind of put that off. But next week, we will have our first guest episode for real this time. And we can't wait for you to hear who our guest is going to be. We'll talk more about her next week, but it's a fun conversation. It was actually recorded while I was still pregnant, but timeless. And actually kind of goes with this conversation that we had today really well. So look forward to that.
Yes.
We're so glad to be back. And gosh, we have so many cool things planned.
I know. I'm so excited. This feels right. Feels natural. It took us a while to get set up today, but I'm glad we did. And we're back, baby. Yeah. We will see you next week right here.
But, we're back, baby. Also, fun thing that we did last season is Q&A. So remember, you can always reach out to us through our website, or you can email us directly at hello@Survivor's Guide to True Crime. You can send us your questions, because we would love to do another FAQ, whether that's questions for previous guests, whether that's questions for us, or anything really. We're pretty much an open book if you haven't figured that out. I mean, I talked about my friggin' placenta, and we talked about periods and eggs and all the things. So we're open books. We're happy to answer your questions, and we're looking forward to having you guys on our journey with us.
Thanks for being here.
See you next week.
Survivor's Guide to True Crime is hosted and executive produced by Kimberly Corbin Rourke and Kara Robinson Chamberlain.
If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find the show.
To learn more about the guests featured or to find resources and information discussed on the show, visit survivorsguidetotruecrime.com.
Thanks for listening.
Well, see you later.